I just finished answering all the questions that come after any kind of presentation like that. I'd been speaking for like an hour and a half and then another hour and a half just answering questions. And all that time, she was waiting in the back of the room, waiting for everybody else to clear the room. And when they finally did, she came forward to me, obviously full of emotion. And when she reached me, the floodgates opened up, just tears, just sobs. And I threw my arms around her and she put her head right here on this shoulder. And we cried. I mean, she cried. I was crying. I didn't even know what I was crying about. And I finally was able to say, what are we crying about? Why are you hurting? And then she squeaked out between her sobs. The divorce will be final in 4 days. 4 days. I remember it was a Saturday. She's talking about on Tuesday. And my heart was so full for her. All I could say back is, it's going to be okay. We will fix this. I'll work with you and we will fix this. That is how I met Libby. That is how I became Libby's mentor. And I want to share her story with you so that you can go through the same process that she did in stopping her divorce or trying to stop her divorce. You want to stick around and hear how things ended up for Libby. So don't stop now. Don't quit now. Libby didn't.
You and me, we could be on top of the world.
Hi, I'm Ramona Zabriskie, multi-award-winning author of Wife for Life, The Power to Succeed in Marriage, and the founder of WifeSavers course and community, the one-of-a-kind personal development and marriage success program for women. Wives from over 70 countries think of me as their marriage mentor. And I would love nothing more than to be your wife saver as well. And one of the first things I do as a wife saver is cry. I cry with my students, just like I did with Libby. And with Libby, it was easy to cry. Her circumstance had been so similar to mine. I too was 4 days away from divorce court when I decided to turn around and to save my marriage. I believed that she and those principals had a chance of succeeding beyond her wildest imagination. If taking personality disorder, mental illness, addictions, abuse out of the equation, if she and her husband were not in full out negative override, this is when a couple cannot recall a single memory without some kind of negativity coloring it. They can't even talk about each other in anything but a negative framework. Basically, it's a zero-sum situation. It's a lose-lose no matter what. As it turned out for Libby, neither she or her husband were in full out negative override yet. So that court date was postponed for a little bit of time that allowed she and I to start working together. But her husband was still determined to proceed and to live separately from her. So what we worked on during this time frame is what I'm going to share with you right now, and it can be categorized into 4 areas of focus. The first thing Libby and I focused on was her individuality, her womanhood, and her why. As Libby's marriage weakened, her confidence seriously and steadily weakened. It was practically nil at this point. So together, we focused on identifying her strengths and appreciating her womanhood, the gifts that she inherently possessed just by virtue of being a woman. And this was all a beautiful revelation to her, very affirming. We also talked a lot about her why for marriage, her deepest reason for wanting to even be married or to stay married. And we also talked about her husband's why, which was very different than hers. She really started to appreciate from that point his uniquely male perspective and to understand his fears, which gave her the desire and the courage, actually, to confront her own misconceptions and hurtful behaviors. And the result, it was pretty miraculous. The new Libby was just exuding confidence. She was back in the driver's seat for the first time in a long time. At this point, for Libby, anything seemed possible. So it was time to turn her understanding into real know-how. So we focused on mastering specific relationship skills, actual strategies and approaches that would lead to more success in her interactions with her husband. Beginning with prioritizing her own well-being. When Libby put personal development on the front burner and learned to manage conflict proactively, she became so much more peaceful overall. Even with the intense pressure and stress of divorce hanging over her head, she stayed steady. Libby was ready for the next focus, which was growing with him, fostering connection and influence with him. Because although Libby was feeling very confident and steady personally herself, she was still very much intent on doing way more than just saving her marriage. She wanted to create something far superior to anything that she had yet experienced with her husband. Now, I knew that wouldn't be easy. It's not a given. He was still estranged from her, but she was ready to do the work. She was in it for the long haul. So we elevated our focus and her skill set. And before long, she was starting to draw him in, even as she was drawing him up. And this is when things really started to change. Little by little, Libby's husband started warming up to her, starting to trust her a little bit more, until he was taking her out to dinner or asking if she wanted to go for a walk. And eventually, the divorce was called off. Now, in case you're thinking that that was just luck or something, I want to tell you, luck had nothing to do with it. That is about living and learning intentionally. And in case you're thinking that she's some kind of standalone case that I pulled out the best of the best to impress you, let me assure you that is totally not the case. I have seen the same principles work with so many women in the years since Libby. Ramona cannot promise that WifeSavers will save your marriage, but I can say it saved mine. No more divorce proceedings for us. On a trip to Florida to visit a friend with one question in mind: is it time to divorce? I came across WifeSavers. Instantly, my marriage was not only worth saving, but I knew I had the control to have an amazing lifelong marriage. If not for WifeSavers, I would now be divorced. I won my husband back when we were only 4 days away from going to court. I am forever in Ramona's debt. I love her and her marriage saving WifeSavers. That last quote was Libby. That was a public post, but she sent me a letter that I want to share with you 2 years after we first met. My husband and I are doing better than ever. I feel we finally have the grand marriage that we deserve with each other. Life is sweeter now. Our love is deeper. There is a calmness to our relationship. We are finally at peace with ourselves and with each other. I am so thankful to be where we are today. Thank you. Thank you for helping me through the darkest days of my life. My husband loves you too. Thank you for throwing me a lifeline, for saving me from myself. Saving her? Saving her from what? From her divorce? From her husband? No, from herself. From that fearful, put upon, victimized, helpless, hopeless self. Libby went from being what we call in WifeSavers the disappearing woman to the courageous, confident, what we call the pioneer woman. You heard it. She said for herself that she is now feeling just so peaceful and proactive and calm. Isn't that just beautiful? You know what Libby's secret is? And it's the secret that you have to discover too. And it's the one that Dorothy discovered in Oz. And that is that she had the power all along, the power to affect her own happiness and in the process to affect the ultimate outcome of her marriage. I have so loved reliving Libby's happy ending with you. Who wouldn't want to love that kind of happy ending? And I'd love to share more of the in between with you, the kind of real strategies and how to's that Libby and I worked with that got her to that happy ending. I would just love to do that. So let me know in the comments which of those 4 phases you're most interested in that you'd like more detail about, and then I promise I will get to it in an upcoming video. And if you'd like to know when that subject pops up, please subscribe to this channel. And in the meantime, you can also click the link in the description to save your seat at my free upcoming live masterclass, Understanding Your Husband and Sons, where I'll really pull back the curtain on his brain, body, and emotional underbelly. Oh, you're just gonna love that. So click the link in the description. All right, as always, it is just a joy to be your wife saver. I'll see you again soon.
It's all true. Everything she said, I applied it as I learned it, and I'm living proof that even I really thought our marriage was over. That, I mean, we had already filed for divorce.